unfortunately, we're in an environment where Australia's a reasonably high tax threshold country.
We share the same accountancy firm, so I get it.
People will look outside of the box to go, what can I do legitimately or illegitimately to get my tax down so I'm better off? It's just not something you want to engage in. So I did a car purchase a little while ago. I was all set, documents all filled in, ready to go. And I got a call from my man. He said, what are you doing? I said, well, just buying a car. And he said, no. And I said, well, hang on, it's my money. And he said, no. You can get the car, but not the way you're doing it. 80 grand worse off doing it the way you want to do it like that versus doing it this way. It's like, thanks.
What do I then need to do now to make sure that roadmap is the most tax effective?
You don't have to be the smartest person. You've got to have good people around you. And all right.
So today we're going to be talking about building your investing team, even if you're a solo person, a lone wolf.
Emotion in decision making is a disaster in the making. We're in a world that there's more opportunity than ever before. Crypto or real estate development, people are attaining one of the benchmarks of success, wealth, at far earlier stages in life. The way to do that, and the only way to do that, is through Hey guys, if you're someone that's looking to build a team of experts around you to help you get to the finish line, the success goal that you're setting, you're going to take a lot out of this podcast. Mitch and I are going to be discussing anecdotally some of the experiences that we've had in life, whether it be accountants, buyers advocates, mortgage brokers, stockbrokers, and other people that come into our life to share a little gem, which might be the thing that you need to get to the next level. You're going to take a heap out of this. Quite a personal conversation, but there are plenty of action points for you to take. So make sure you take notes. And as always, make sure you take plenty of action. See you in the show. Hey guys, welcome to this week's Money and Investing Show with me, your host, Andrew Baxter, and as always, my offsider and co-host, Mitchell Olarenshaw.
Thanks, Mr. B. Good to be here as always. Now, interesting session for our viewers on this one. Everything in life is very hard on your own. What do they say? If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. So today we're going to be talking about building your investing team, even if you're a solo person, a lone wolf.
Yeah, look, crucial. Teams, very, very important. You cannot be an expert at everything. You know, stay in your lane, be good at it, and enlist the help of other people.
Yeah.
I think that have got their lane of expertise. Let them bring that to you.
Yeah, so I guess if we sort of narrow this down, we're talking about anyone who's wanting to get invested, whether it be stocks or property, or who maybe is, say, a small to medium business owner and is starting to go through the motions of that. And I think there's so many elements to business and investing. It's not just about doing the investing itself. It's often the admin and the work around it, which is the hardest part, which is what we want to talk about with respect to outsourcing.
Got it. Okay, so I guess, we're talking about advice in the advice space. And unfortunately, there is a very polarizing standard of advice that's out there. You can find advisors that are exceptional, and you can find advisors that are appalling, and obviously there's everything that sits in between. So trying to find someone that's going to add value is a challenge. We talk about this quite extensively in the book in terms of the interviewing process for advisors. Just because you walk through the door in accounting practice doesn't mean to say you're going to become a client. You have the ability to interview them too, as an example.
Yeah.
But without the right people in your corner, you can really be in a suboptimal outcome, purely and simply because the advice you were given or not given could cost you considerably. And I've seen both sides of that.
Yeah, and I think we drew it back. I think it might have been Napoleon Hill in one of his books talks about having that mastermind group. So let's go through some of the roles.
Master Key to Riches is the book. Have you read it yet?
I have, yeah.
Good. It's a great book. It's a really, really good book.
I'm a reader now, believe it or not. Let's go through some of the team members you might need to start on your investing journey. I think the obvious and the first one is the mentor. Who are you listening to?
That's right. I mean, your peer group particularly can have an enormous impact. If you hang around people that are perpetually negative about everything in life, that's the lens you're going to look through. You have people that are optimistic, you're going to look through a happier lens. If you've got people that are settling, that's where you're going to be. If you've got people that are drivers, that are strivers, that are looking to achieve more, then they're going to pull you along in that vortex. So picking the group of people on a social friend level is a good way to do that, and most certainly then moves out in terms of the advisory people that you enlist as well. So if we take the example of having a mentor, what's the person's motivation? And generally speaking, you will find that there are some people that out of the kindness of their heart will give you a hand, but free advice is also worth what you pay for it.
Yeah.
And then there are people in the more professional arena that are qualified, skilled, and hold a professional standard, I suppose, for the advice that they provide. So if I look at what we do, and if I look at myself, I've got clients that have paid me tens and tens of thousands of dollars a year for advice, and it's been worth it in spades for them in terms of what they've been able to do as they've applied that advice, and they've enlisted me on a professional level to do a professional service. Equally, I have people that I mentor that there's no commercial transaction. It's something that I've entered into because I want to help someone that's a runner, a charger, someone that wants to do something with their life. And you go, well, it's great when you find people like that. What can you do to help them on their journey? And for me, that's a payback, I suppose. Well, I had people earlier on in my life that helped me on my pathway. And I guess there's a responsibility to pass that baton on by doing something similar for people in that thing. And I think also it gives you an overall feeling of well-being in that you're doing something that's good too.
Yeah, I think that's what you were for me, really. I mean, when we met, I was only a kid, right? And you took me under your wing, and you still to this day are my biggest mentor. And, I think it's been the driving force for a lot of the decisions I've made. But coming back to yourself, just as an example, who was your biggest mentor when you were starting out?
Look, there are different phases that you look for. I think if we talk specifically in the career phase, there was a guy called Jim Bonner. A firm I work for, and he was great. He took me under his wing a little bit and showed me the way, and I'm very, very grateful to him for that. And it gave me I'm not going to say a glide path because I needed to do the work. And I think any good mentor says to you, I'm not going to do it for you. I'm going to give you some advice, tell you what maybe you want to think about. It's up to you at the end of the day, your life, your decision, and you're going to have to ultimately do it. Can't do it for you. And he was very good like that. I think I've had a couple of one in particular had a really, really good accountant at one point in time, and that was a pivot point for me too. They're direct relationships, and then there's other stuff that you pick up subliminally or from other resources. So you mentioned in passing about Napoleon Hill. Obviously, he's someone that's been a mentor for many, many people, not live anymore because he's obviously passed away, but the legacy of the work that he's done through his books. And so for me, one of the really important people that I came into through reading the book was Robert Kiyosaki, actually, insofar as understanding I'd achieved a good level of financial success, but it was through my earnings as an employee, and learning that there are other quadrants in there, whether that's being an investor, whether it's being a business owner, and so on, was really quite pivotal. And having that explanation in Rich Dad, Poor Dad, the fact that as a company, you pay your tax on what's left. As a pay-as-you-go person, you pay your tax off the top. It is a total game changer for the lens that you look through. And, and it's almost embarrassing to say that as someone that was a professional in financial services at that time. But no one had ever explained that to me. Yeah. And if no one's ever sat down and told you something, how would you know it? So, here's an example of someone that in a book, and I've got to know Robert really well. I've spoken alongside him many times around the world, and he loves his rugby. There's a lot of common ground there, and so on. But that for me was really important. There are other books that have done similar things. So mentors don't have to be someone that's someone that's in proximity to you. James Clear, Atomic Habits. I mean, that is one of the best books written if you want to achieve anything in life, which we plug almost as much as my book here. But, at the end of the day, that's a legacy that you can then leave behind that's accessible, that's not expensive. Book's not expensive. You just got to apply what's in it. Sadly, most books don't get read, so that's a travesty. So what about yourself? I mean, you mentioned I've helped you a little bit, but there are other people that have come through, in your lane as well, and either on a professional or personal level. Yeah,
I think my dad and my pop were two great mentors for me. My dad probably coached me around the whole lifestyle inflation type comment, which is a big one for me. Yeah. My dad's a pretty...
he's probably one of the few people on the planet that like spending money even less than you do. So
that's right. Yeah. My parents have achieved a pretty decent level of success, but never finished high school, never went to uni. And my dad gets paid an allowance from mum every week in cash, and that's what he spends, and it's on coffee and toast, and that's it basically. And I think that was a good marker point for me to draw it back. And my pop was much the same. So I think family influence by proximity is great. And sometimes I think even in my broader family, I learned what not to do just from seeing more extended family on situations that may have arisen. You sort of view it from the outside in, and you say, okay, that's not what I want to do, and that's what I do want to do, which is important for starting out.
It's huge, and you can split test it in a family too. I mean, you see other people in your family that are partially at least of the same DNA, and they're making absolute pig's ear of it because they haven't maybe learned or had people come into their life. And I agree. Like my parents, same thing. My dad, if you can do something, do it properly, or don't do it at all. It's as simple as that. And watch the pennies and the pounds will take care of themselves. all those things are huge. So going into the professional side of things, I mentioned previously I had a good accountant. He's probably a little bit too good because he fell foul of the rules and has paid a price for it, and rightly so. Getting good advice, getting a good accountant is level one. And unfortunately, we're in an environment where obviously Australia is a reasonably high tax threshold country. And so a lot of people will look outside of the box to go, what can I do legitimately or illegitimately to get my tax down so I'm better off? And right off the bat, as a caveat for this, don't go off the reservation seeking things that are outside of the law. It will come back and bite you. It's just not something you want to engage in. So you've got to stay within the letter of the law. That said, within the letter of the law, with the right advice, there are many, many things that you can be doing. Structuring is obviously the key one. And for people when they're starting out, you think, well, I've got to do this right before just get started. Get things moving along, do it in your own name. It's tax punitive initially, and as you get to a certain level, then explore the notion of getting structured when it becomes commercially worthwhile. But the notion of having trusts that then can distribute or stall income distributions and companies and all those different things add considerable value. But even keeping up to date with stuff. So I had a really bad accountant. I moved through two bad accountants before I dropped anchor where I am now, which I'm really happy with. And these were two top tier firms that were supposed to be excellent at what they did, and they made an absolute fist of it because the relationship wasn't there. One was a really big firm, and for them, you're just a client number on a bit of paper, and it's a perfunctory task of, okay, how can we milk this client for as much fee as we can, offering the bare minimum of service that we can on the basis that it's on our letterhead, so it must mean something. And that was a real pull up for me because I thought that going with this particular firm was a good move. And it turned out to not be. And equally, I moved on to another firm that was more local, still a high profile firm. And initially, I had one of the partners looking after me who was excellent, one of the best actually, very, very good. And then over a period of time, he transitioned into new things. Your file gets passed on to somebody else, and the service level started dropping. It's what we call relationship fatigue. So they just take for granted you're going to be a client. Most people, stay with their accountant forever. Probably not the best idea. I think making sure they stay honest by shopping around, saying, look, we've had fee creep. Your fees are going up each year. What are you actually delivering for me that justifies the additional fee? They're the conversations that have to kind of do that. So getting a good accountant is key, and that's an accountant that will push back and say no to you. And people don't like that. I want to do this. No. And it's why? Because the consequences are X, Y, and Z. And you're unaware of those things, and it can save you tens, hundreds, millions of dollars depending on what level you're playing at, and it can be something so simple. I did a car purchase a little while ago, and I was all set, documents all filled in, ready to go, and I got a call from our man. He said, "What are you doing?" I said, "What do you mean? I'm just buying a car." And he said, "No." And I said, "Well, hang on, it's my money." And he said, No. You can get the car, but not the way you're doing it. And I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Well, if you do it in this structure here versus doing it this way here." He said, "I've just worked out," and he was on leave at the time. He'd called me from overseas. "I've just worked out the additional fringe benefits versus the GST versus this and that. You're going to be 80 grand worse off doing it the way you want to do it like that versus doing it this way." It's like, thanks.
And there's your entire fee for the year justified right there.
Well, I wouldn't tell him his fee was justified, obviously, because I like to drive a hard bargain, but that's on the A-Trans. It's a nice car, but I mean, that's an example where I thought I was going, okay, I'm going to do it this way because my map of the world is this. And as I mentioned to you, you don't have to be the smartest person. You've got to have good people around you. And I reckon I'm reasonably savvy. I didn't realize all of this that he then told me over the phone and then sent her on the email. And it's
He's an expert though, right? In his field.
And that's why you have people like that in your corner. Simple example, and there's been a myriad of other things over time that, that hand on the shoulder going, maybe what's your objective here? Okay, that's cool. Well, what if we approached it from this way? And the fact that they have the courage to not just rubber stamp it and say, sure, whatever you want to do, they're going, no, I'm going to challenge your beliefs and tell you that this is probably a better way because this is my field of expertise. That's an accountant. We're only one group down out of the army. Who's next?
Well, we've got mentor, we've got the accountant. And if I could just add one more thing to that, I mean, we share the same accountancy firm, so I get it. I think having that personal touch where you can match goals and objectives with structuring and advice is the best thing. even from a simple term for myself, this is what I want to achieve within the next 5 years. What do I then need to do now to make sure that roadmap is the most tax effective?
It's digging the well before you need the water and planning it out, because you can't do things and then try and change it retrospectively. It becomes very hard, especially structuring. So getting all that sort of stuff right it is crucial. So I'm happy where I've landed. I know we've the same accountant at the moment, and yeah, they've justified and some.
I'm still waiting on my referral bonus. Bringing you over.
Is it a percentage of my fees you reckon you're in for? Or?
I reckon we could work on that. I'd be happy enough with that, I think.
I reckon I pay more than 80 grand a year. Think about that too. So
unashamed plug to SB Partners here on the Gold Coast. Yeah. Absolute legends.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Couldn't agree with you more. Yep. Okay, moving in. Who's next?
Okay, number 3 is the broker, whether it be mortgage broker, stock broker, buyer's agent in property, real estate agent.
Property is a good one. Let's start with a buyer's agent. You think this is an unnecessary expense? I'm paying a couple of % for someone that's just basically milking the cow here and doesn't have to do anything. They have no emotional involvement in the decision. Yep. And if you've ever been to an auction, number one, if you win at an auction, you pay too much. Simple as that. It's just a simple rule of life. But if it's something that you can get really emotionally charged over, and like firsthand, let's just use anecdotal experience. We've both lived life, so so. A couple of years ago, I was looking to buy another farm, and it was a good farm actually. And so I'm down there. My father-in-law came to the auction with me, and before I went, I said to my wife, "Okay, what do you reckon? Here's the numbers." And Emma, as you know, is quite hard-nosed. That's the number.
No, nothing more than that.
And I'm thinking, okay, we could probably go a bit more than that, but the prospect of living the next 5 years on the couch didn't appeal. So stick and carrot. And so it's like, okay, that's the number. So we go to the auction, and I drive over the hill down onto the property, and there's probably 60 cars there. They are, geez, this is going to be a really tough auction.
Yeah.
And it turned out there were 3 registered bidders, me and 2 other people, and everyone else was there for a sticky beat, which is often the case. And immediately what that highlights is don't jump to conclusions, don't be premature in what your assessment of the play is. So we got underway, and the bidding was quite spirited in the first sort of stanza, as it often is, and one of the bidders then dropped that, and it was just me and the other dude, and we went at it. And we went at it for a good while, and I got to getting close to my number, and my father-in-law was with me, and he didn't say a thing, but I could just hear him breathing. It was like, that's the reminder,
anxiety.
That's the reminder I needed. And I thought, right, okay, and so you've gone through all of, if you ever read a book on, or do a course on how to bid at an auction, gone through all the knockout bid and the silly bid and all the different strategies in there to try and get the outcome that
Sounds
you're looking
fun.
for.
Yeah.
Anyway, we got to, and then the bids are starting to get really small. And I got to my number, and the other guys looked at me. He's like, "You got to be kidding!" And I thought, I've got it. Because I thought that you just watch someone's body language, and that's what I like about auctions. And that's why Open Outcry as a trading system, where I started my career, was great, because you can see the other party, you can read their body language really well. I love reading people, and that was a perfect environment for it. So I'm watching him at the auction, and I just watched him and I just watched his shoulders slump. I thought, he's hit his limit.
Yep,
I've got it. And then he's decided to come over the top with a knockout, which if he'd have just gone another $500, he'd have walked away with it anyway. But instead, he was so cranky about it. And here's an example tying back, there's no weave here. Let's get back to why you want a buyer's agent. He could have easily just come in with a $50 bid. He didn't know this, of course, but I was at my number, and
so anything above that was his, right?
And he was there. So he's come in with his knockout bid. And then he's looked back, and I've just gone, yeah, congratulations, basically. And so once, twice, third, whenever he said, mate, great bidding. We had a bit of a laugh about it all. And he said, well, how come you put, and I said, that was my number. And he's like, you're kidding? I went this far over. I said, well, yeah, but there you go. Now, if you've got a buyer's agent that's doing that for you, you tend to be less frustrated or less emotionally charged in what you're doing, because not everyone's got the discipline around that. So mortgage broker, it's a buyer's agent to do your bidding for you and keep it at arm's length. There's no emotional, nothing there. Secondly, the mortgage broker to get you the deal on your finance. Yep. Going to the bank to try and do it. I mean, you've just done a couple of transactions over the last little while. Mortgage broker or bank direct? Mortgage broker.
My family, not my family directly, but my uncle and cousin own a mortgage broking firm. So for me, it was quite an easy relationship to build. But I guess the service that I got, even being family and handballed out to other people and whatnot, was exceptional. And I guess that whole process of buying a house or an investment property is, if your first time, is really confusing and quite overwhelming. Having someone there to break it down for you and what it all means makes things a lot easier.
100%.
And you get a better deal. Here's all your options. This is the best deal. This is the one we're going with.
You couldn't agree more. And again, it's like, here's an array of different things, and the experience that they've got of placing your self-employed. So being able to place your business with a lender that looks more favorably on that versus someone that goes, no, I need to see the last 98 years worth of your tax returns.
That's it.
Everything that goes alongside it. So mortgage broker, most definitely. There are mortgage brokers, and then there are mortgage brokers. I have a guy I've used for 15, 16 years who's exceptional. Personal introduction, same thing. Makes life easy. Okay, let's get to Elaine.
Stockbroking.
Or former stockbroker.
Former stockbroker. Yeah, that's right. Your gateway to financial markets. So if you're wanting to do stock market investing, having a trusted professional to give you advice and support, I think it's second to none, right?
It's value add. The temptation, cheap is dear sometimes. I can trade online for less, but then if you've got to come up with your own ideas, everything comes down to a value proposition, right? So if it's execution only, the fee, which means basically you call the broker and say, buy me some 500 BHP today at market. That's an order execution. It's execution only. There shouldn't be a big dial up on that. But when it's full service and there's advice and other things that go around it, there's a different fee structure that sits with that. We offer, I guess, a hybrid model where we offer full service broking at discount brokerage rates, effectively by virtue of our scale and size and the processes that we use, which is a great value add for our clients. And again, some people out there would be, I'll just do it myself. I'm master of my own destiny. That's great until you make a mistake.
Yeah.
I've been doing this long enough. I don't make mistakes. So I'll give you a first-hand example. I was in Bali, of all places. I was up there visiting a buddy of mine. And I was doing a trade on sugar. I was trading futures quite heavily, and I was in this transaction on sugar, and I needed to close it, and I lost my internet signal for my trading platform where I was, and it was moving quite quickly. It was approaching lock limit, which for anyone that trades futures is where it's moved by a certain amount, and then the market stops trading that day.
Yeah.
Which means you can't get out of your position there and then, and you've got to wait till the next trading session. But if it's on a volatility surge or there's a news flow that's result, like just say there was a devastating weather pattern that wiped out a sugar crop, so the price has just gone ballistic going up. Great if you're long. The next day it probably hits lock limit again and again, and so it might be 3 or 4 days before you can close out, which is a traumatic and extraordinarily expensive problem to have.
That a few times in the stock market, same rules apply,
so,
right?
It's not fun. So I got on the phone to my broker. It helps when people work for you. They kind of pick up the phone at night, and that's like, you need to close me out of this, get it done. And so there's an advantage to having that sort of ability to talk to someone when you need it, whereas if you're trying to run your own race, that's first-hand example, and I've probably had 3 or 4 of those over, that's not a lot, over 20 years, but they were all very expensive. I weren't able to get the position closed or done.
I had the same conversation with a client on Friday. He made a mistake on his behalf where he actually accidentally oversold more shares than what he had owned in a company.
So he's net short.
Net short on the position, which means he's going to profit. Yeah, he's going to profit if the share price
I'm just thinking of all the problems like starting to sort of add up here.
It's a good ending to this story. He's going to profit if the share price falls. He happened to be short AMD, which if anyone is following Advanced Micro Devices in the last week,
tear and a half.
It's gone up 47%. He gets short the stock. He called for advice. I coached him on getting out of the position and how to do it. It just so happened that he closed out on Friday, which was a massive big down day for the market, and he actually ended up not too bad. But if you don't know what you don't know, then there's no way to exit that. Having someone to call and say, this is the situation I'm in, what do I do?
Well, let's is invaluable. Because this is really interesting, because there's actually a theme that's starting to build here. And this red and blue brain, in terms of panic is red brain where everything is chaos, blue brain is really objective.
Cool. Yeah.
So in a situation like that where you've got an erroneous trade on, for example, most people's reaction is to panic. And in that red brain moment of panic and chaos, trying to fix the problem that you're in can sometimes exacerbate it. And a number of years ago, we used to have a philosophy in a other broking business whereby if you made a mistake, the first thing you did if you were a dealer and you'd made a mistake is hop up on your desk, actually get up, stand on the desk. It's sort of sounds strange, and go, I've made a mistake. Let the whole trading desk know it. You're going to be buying beers on Friday, I'm sure.
Get the applause, obviously, for your honesty.
Cheer and applause, because that's the integrity and honesty, which is how you create a good culture within an organization. And then one of the other traders or brokers would then unwind that mistake because they're totally objective about it and they can see it very clearly as to what needs to happen, versus the advisor who's made the mistake and very likely is on the hook for any financial damage as a consequence of that.
Yep.
So now they're in panic mode. It's costing me money, marginalize them out of the decision, get it closed and done.
Yep.
And then when it's all done, get it through the errors log, book it out properly and all that sort of stuff. But it's a way of taking that emotion away. And in just the same way we spoke about the buyer's advocate taking away, or the buyer's agent taking away the emotion at an auction. Emotion in decision making is a disaster in the making. And so having that ability to have someone that's level-headed and composed to make the decision or to take the action step you need in that time of crisis is invaluable.
Totally. Yep, I agree. You've got to have a team of experts to lean on when you need it.
And when times are good, you don't need it. It's like when everything's rocking and rolling, I don't need that. But
until you do, right?
Until you do. And you never know when that is. But when you do, you genuinely do.
Yeah. Let's move to the next on the list. What about our legal team? And there's a few different elements I could see here. Structuring, separation, divorce. I mean, there's a myriad of different things we can cover. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. I think having a lawyer or lawyers, unfortunately, is a fact of life. We're in an extremely litigious world. And trying to stay away from legal action is probably the best piece of advice you'll have. But sadly, sometimes it comes your way and you've got to put the gloves on and deal with it. Having someone, again, that's an expert in their field, having a generalist lawyer is a total waste of time. So if you've got a family law matter, my wife is a special counsel in a family law firm. She's been on this podcast. That's all she does. I wouldn't go to her for contract advice. I wouldn't go to her for litigation, but she'd be there in the top 5 practitioners in the country in her lane, which is family law. And so it makes sense if you've got a family law issue to go talk to that problem, that party that's able to deal with it. In the same way, we have within our organisation compliance lawyers, and they do one thing only, and that is compliance. They're very aware of the law around financial services. And their role is to ensure that at all times we're compliant with those rules. That's all they do. I don't use them for litigation. I only use them for that. I've got a separate compliance structuring lawyer that deals with the regulatory side of things, licensing and things in that space. And then, of course, you've got your litigation lawyer, the junkyard dog that's there on the chain, ready to be let off and do what's needed as and when it is. So they're different firms for different things because they're all experts in their field. And look, I've talked about different scenarios that for most people aren't factors that are
they're not going to
come up.
Those,
so, if you're Joe Bag of Donuts and you're going through life, hopefully you won't need compliance lawyers, and you won't hopefully need a litigation specialist. Maybe you do have a general counsel that looks after your will and conveyancing,
the normal
and
stuff,
the meat and potatoes type stuff that your average person is probably going to need. And that's a different thing. And I've got a firm that does that too, thinking about it. A lot of legal fees in there. But
poor thing, just thinking about all these team members.
The key thing is if you do everything right, you don't need them.
That's right. I think probably an important one too for anyone listening to this. Their intention, I would guess, would be to build wealth, whether it be through property, stocks, investment, business, whatever it may be. Having your ducks in a row with things like binding financial agreements or prenups, if that's the route you want to go down, can, in crude terms, save your bacon. And I think it's worth doing if you're going to go down the route of really building wealth.
You have to. I mean, we've talked previously, and I think it was actually my dad's advice when I had my dad on here, about, stay married. And I'm not talking about if you're in an abusive relationship, staying in an abusive, but I'm generally speaking, a lot of marriages fail because people just don't invest in them. It's as simple as that, and you grow apart. So, having a binding financial agreement, I think is, and for the benefit of the people that don't know what that is a prenup to all intents and purposes, where you go in and say, right, this is what I'm coming in with, this is what you're coming in with. If we go our own ways, this is what we're leaving with. Yeah. And both parties know where they stand prior to, and this can happen if there's an asset imbalance, for example, and it's quite an important thing to consider. And it just provides peace of mind. It's an insurance policy that you hope you never need, but if you do, it's already written. It's like buying insurance on your portfolio. It'd be great to have done that before the market turned down, not after. It's no good to you then. So that's something that's key. Going back to your property stuff, understanding the entity that you're buying in is also very, very important, because if you buy a property in the wrong entity and you need to move it, well, the notion of stamp duty, amongst other things, it becomes a very, very expensive exercise to change the beneficial owner of something. So get it right first time with that kind of thing. And if you go down the path of a trust or a company that does your special investment company or whatever it might be that does all of that, make sure you dot the I's, cross the T's, get it set up properly, get it right first time.
That's it. Last but not least, on the team of experts and professionals we have is your peer group. So your mastermind, people that you're collaborating with, sharing ideas with, just as important.
Yeah.
What would you say?
It is. Yeah.
Because you've got to bounce ideas off like-minded people, right, who are outside the accountant and outside the lawyer.
Exactly right.
Same lane as you.
And everyone's looking. Everyone's looking at life, albeit through different lenses. And having people that perhaps see things differently to you, is crucial, because it starts to give you maybe not a 360 view of the world, but maybe a 300-degree view of the world, as opposed to the very narrow beam that we have. And politics is a very good example at the moment, where it's really divisive. You're either in one lane or the other, and there's not that much middle ground there. So having people that you can have open conversations with, and we were at dinner a couple of weeks ago actually, and with some friends, and of all things we were talking about was the social score for people's conduct that China has sort of about,
okay.
Which is an extremely confronting kind of conversation, but there are a lot of merits in it. And all three of us were very different in our political views. One of the guys is in facial recognition technology, actually, and he's been involved in how that stuff can be used. Isn't, apparently, but can be used.
Okay.
And you can see where it's going. Another guy's an entrepreneur. Good friends. And we're having a really, really good conversation about that. And it was enlightening, because my view shifted quite considerably based on some of the things I was hearing from particularly the guy that's working in that facial recognition space. And then both of them were looking at what I had to say in quite a different way. So it was a really frank and good conversation. That's not necessarily about business or growth, but having people that you can have good conversations with that are respectful. We go, look, I don't agree with you on that. And rather than us never speaking again because you're on the other side of the track, it's like, why do you hold that view? And hear it go, yeah, that's actually quite interesting. I never thought about that.
Yeah.
And if you're with smart people, they can articulate that. Just this morning, the Brains Trust, where I get my coffee from, there's a couple of guys really eclectic mix of people. One guy who had a massive sports franchise in London and sold all that out a number of years ago, and does a lot of things, does real estate, things like that. And there's another guy who was in real estate who ended up being a movie producer by accident. Just totally by accident.
Out of all things, a movie producer.
Yeah, and the movie went really well. And then they did a sequel which went even better, and so he ended up having to live in Monaco for about 10 years for tax reasons before he was able to sort of gradually filter his way back. And they're not people that are in my lane. One's a real creative, and the other one is I guess he's an entrepreneur. And we just had a 5-minute chat this morning. We're waiting for coffee about something that's not money or investing related, but it's like, I hadn't thought about that, and I know both of those guys quite well. And they're not silly. So if they're talking about something, I've done a fair bit of research and I've just said this, and it was actually in regard to stem cell treatment. Okay. And one of the guys is a jiu-jitsu champion. He's a very, very good jiu-jitsu practitioner. And he tore a meniscus in his hip, and the surgeon's like, hip replacement, it's arthritic. And he's going, nah, I'm not having a hip replacement. I'm too young. And sort out, an alternate way of getting it fixed. And he's 5-6 months in and absolutely fantastic, full mobility, muscle regenerating, the whole thing. And he said, I spent probably 5 months researching this properly because of my old business being in the fitness and well-being space. Everyone's giving me tips on where and what to go. And this is where I arrived at. So by virtue of that mastermind alliance in something that's so far from my normal lane, I've got knee problems, as everyone knows, and it's now given me somewhere I can go with a level of confidence that someone I can trust and is smart has gone, this is pretty good, and I've used it firsthand. You might want to consider it. Yeah, that's not in the money lane, but it's an example of why having that peer group, that mastermind of people that you can listen to and come up with ideas are good. You're a more social person than me. I mean, I'm
only by virtue of age. And location. You do live on a farm in Byron Bay.
Yeah, I know. So you're in the hub of it, but you're also, and this will be interesting to put you on the spot here because, I mean, you're an outlier. You're a younger person. You've been exceptionally successful in your working career. You're becoming very successful in your investing career. Mm-hmm. So what does your peer group look like, given the fact that in this instance, I would suggest that age is working against you if you've got a peer group of your age, because most blokes your age are not anywhere close to the level that you're at in terms of financially or trajectory that you're on. So what does your peer group look like? How do you, what's that for you?
I think it's there's two parts to that question. Thanks for that. That's going to make me think. I think a lot of my mates my age probably come to me for advice, and that's not to say I'm an expert, but as you say, I'm a little further along the line as them, and that probably gives me a responsibility to my friends, which in turn helps me as well.
Yep.
And they say coaching's a two-way process. When you flesh something out with someone, I think I get back a lot of value as well. I've probably now I would say associated myself with people who are slightly older than me, purely based on the fact that we are probably more like-minded and in the same area financially. So anyone I've made connections through real estate and that kind of thing where we can all share ideas. So probably two sides to it: giving advice to people my age as a two-way process, and then seeking advice from slightly people older.
Yeah, that's interesting, and it's probably not a bad strategy to have. And it's really funny, Guy, for anyone listening to this, I mean, to an extent, some of you that are listening to this will consider us mentors to you, because every week we hopefully deliver value through whatever monologue. This was supposed to be a short one today, and we've gone well past
I know,
that.
we have.
And that's a responsibility of mentoring. And so being accurate in what you say, or having, I guess, a substantive view for a reason based on learned experience or track record or qualification or whatever it may be, it is a responsibility. And it's actually a heavy responsibility if you're coaching or mentoring someone, whether it's through this medium or whether it's your friends, because you're on the hook for that advice, good, bad, or indifferent. The interesting, I'll just add in to your point there, and so an older peer group, success, and most people, their benchmark, well, it's a bad benchmark. It's I guess your net number. They go, he's been successful, or she's been successful, she's made this. That's not a good benchmark for success. It's a far more rounded experience than just numerical money, dollars. It's health and well-being, for example, which you're obviously excelling in. 50K on Saturday and an ultra in a couple of weeks' time. Good luck with it. Should get these guys to sponsor you. Get the link up there somewhere. But the other aspects to that, connection with people, contribution back in, all those things are really, really important parts of a benchmark for success. But the money one, this is Money Investing Show after all, is one that people keep coming back to. Now, I was at a car event a couple of weeks ago, and what was really, really interesting is how the demographic for that particular brand's vehicle has shifted over the last 20 years.
Okay.
And so traditionally, the average buyer of that car used to be 52. Statistically, over the last, say, 25 years, it's now 36.
Interesting. Okay.
And the reason for that is that we're in a world that there's more opportunity than ever before. If you look at the fortune that's been made through crypto or real estate development or technology or apps or online businesses and just about everything else, there's more opportunity than any other time, which has brought that age bracket down. As a pretty expensive car. I was talking about Rolls Royce, and that number has come down to 36 for a reason, because people are attaining one of the benchmarks of success, wealth, at far earlier stages in life. But the way to do that, and the only way to do that, is through a good team around you. Because you could make an absolute fortune, and if you don't have the right peer group, or I guess family values of not going down the casino and putting it up against the wall, or developing recreational drug habits, or all of those different things that can denigrate your wealth or get into the wrong relationship for the wrong reasons. If you've got a really steady support group around you that have pushed you in the right direction to go down the right path for stability, and you're making money, and you've got really good advisors from a structuring perspective to make sure that you're impervious to being sued, or your tax is up to date, so you're not going to get a latent. That's why so many builders go under. Oh, $7 million in tax, I've spent it. You're on the front foot with all of those things, and legal advice to ensure that you're doing things in a compliant way. All those team members are crucial in those people attaining that success at a financial success, that is, at a younger level of life, because I think, there's more availability of information and more emphasis on the importance of setting yourself up for success correctly.
Yeah. I'll offer one last piece of advice to anyone listening to this, and that would be simply to be curious. I think when you go around and you consume certain things, and a good example of this, I was warming up for a run earlier in the week. So 5 a.m, there's a cafe directly below my building. I go there for coffee every morning on my way to work, but I was warming up and the owner, the head barista was coming, he was setting up. And we just started chatting. I said, oh, so I've noticed that you've put your prices up recently on the menu. Why have you done that? And he said, oh, X, Y, Z. And I said, so what kind of margin do you make? And we had this really good conversation around cost and benefits in a cafe. Now, I don't own a cafe or have any desire to own a cafe, but it was a good conversation where he was able to share with me some information about how he runs his business and what makes him tick. And that was just with a 10-minute conversation with a barista whilst I was warming up. You can do that everywhere you go, and you will always learn something from someone, even though it's outside of your lane.
I think being curious is a really good way to leave this, because what does curious mean? You know, it's about lifting up the rock and seeing what's under it. It's about having the confidence to ask the question, to start a conversation. And I guess I've just talked about success, at least from a financial perspective, using that car brand as a proxy. That's on the positive side, that the opportunity has been there for people to become financially significantly more successful more quickly. The flip side of that, and it is a tragedy that I do see across society, is that people's ability and confidence to have a conversation isn't there anymore. People are far more guarded or shy, or just simply don't know how to have a conversation and ask. And you know something, 9 times out of 10, you have a conversation with someone, ask you a question, what do you do? Or what's your thoughts on this? Or whatever it might be. What you get back in spades, it outweighs any sort of barrier that you might have about, oh, they're going to laugh at me if I ask them this. If you go up to anyone that's remotely successful and ask them a question about what they've done, well, think about it. You're asking someone to talk about their favorite subject, which is them.
That's right.
And what you can glean out of it is priceless. Hopefully, some of the little gems you can glean out of our conversation today may too be priceless for you.
Thank you, AB. Cheers.
Anytime. There you have it, guys. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe. Most importantly, hit the notification button, and we'll look forward to hosting you next week.